Welcome to the Plant Cunning Podcast,
where we explore a relationship to plants, other people, and the mysteries of nature.
Coming to you from the high Allegheny Plateau in central New York.
We are your hosts, A.C. Stauble
and Isaac Hill. Welcome to another episode of the Plant Cunning Podcast. Today on the show we have Jaime Paul Lamb, and we're going to get into some astrological fun. He's recently written a book about the Quinaries, which is a way of dividing the zodiac into sections of 5 degrees. And it's a really interesting book, and we're going to get, as I say in the podcast, into the nitty-gritty. And if you're into astrology, like traditional astrology, you're going to really enjoy this episode. And before we get into it, I just want to let folks know that I am available for Vedic astrology readings. You can message me at info@plantcunning.com. That's info@plantcunning.com to set up a reading with me. And we also really appreciate all of the Patreon patrons, all of you who like, share, subscribe, do all this, comment, leave us 5-star reviews. We appreciate all of that. And we're excited for the Plant Cunning Conference, which is coming up in the summer of 2026. So, without any further ado, here is Jaime Paul Lamb. Today on the Plant Cunning Podcast, we have Jaime Paul Lamb. And Jaime is an astrologer, magician, author, and much more. And he's recently written this book, The Astrological Goetia, which is a book about the Quinaries, which are the 5-degree division of the zodiac, which is, I think it's really an awesome, it's something that I think is very important for traditional Western astrology, and he's like innovating within the tradition. So I really like that, the concept of this book, and I like how it's been put together as well. So Jaime, how are you?
I'm doing great, and I really appreciate you reaching out and having me on the podcast. It's really a pleasure to meet and talk with you guys. And I mean, like you said, innovating inside of the tradition. I didn't make anything up in the book. It's I cite all my sources and everything. It was just I hadn't seen the application of the Quinaries astrologically. They go back in the tradition, back to the, if I can pronounce it correctly, the Salmeshkianaka. Or the Salmeshkianaka is like book of images, I think it means, but images in the sense of almost a talismanic sense. Like how you have Deccan images, where there's a man bearing a sword and he's got red on, whatever. But so there were these images associated with what we call the Quinaries, right? 5-degree arc segments of the ecliptic. Not to get too deep into it right now, but I hadn't seen anybody use the attributes to these Quinaries, the angelic and demonic attributes that you see in the Sefer HaRaziel Malek, or I forget what it's called, and the Ars Goetia. There's attributes given for each of these angels and demons. So, and I thought, why not use those? Why is there no record of anybody using these in chart delineation? So, Sefer HaRaziel HaMalak, the book of the angel Raziel. Hamalak, I think, is like the king, or Hamalak.
Awesome. So I'm really excited to get into the nitty-gritty with the book, but first we'd like to know, like, what brought you to the astrological path? How did you become an traditional astrologer and magician?
Sure. So that began about going on 20 years ago. I started to get interested in occultism, and I bought tarot cards. I'm not sure exactly why. I was interested in mythology and things like that, and philosophy, and late antique philosophy, and then I got interested in Freemasonry, and I went through that process about 15 years ago. And that kind of got me into the cosmological element, because there's there are certainly some sort of vestigial cosmological and even astrological elements to Masonic initiation and symbolism. So that was kind of my inroad to, viewing the temple as the year, micro macro relationships like that, and how there are all these like cosmological events, like the like what the Egyptians would call the first time, Zep Tepi, and how that's something that's eternally recurring, that you read in like the Sacred and the Profane from Miche Eliade, and just this idea of the festival year, and how that's tied to the temple. So that sort of at first cosmological stuff was interesting to me, archetypally and mythologically and otherwise, and Hercules' 12 labors and the zodiac, and of course the Christian sort of cosmic view of things, Christ's ministry as an annual solar circuit, for example, that we all, I think, blew everybody's mind when Zeitgeist came out. Remember watching Zeitgeist the first time?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 12 apostles, the 12 zodiac signs. Yeah,
Exactly.
Really
So that was kind of an eye opener as well, for a lot of people, I think, and digging into that bag. But then all of a sudden, it's like astrology is almost like operative cosmology, right? It's almost like
yeah.
So
I like that.
so
I like that a lot. Operative cosmology. Yeah.
right. So that was an easy kind of segue that I made about maybe 5-10 years ago, not too long ago. 5 years ago, really seriously. 10 years ago, kind of seriously, but it definitely picked up steam. And I studied with Christopher Warnock, Chris Brennan, and took their courses and things, and a lot of independent study, a lot of Ben Dyke's Perso-Arabic stuff, and then into Lily. I got deeply into Lily. In fact, that's something, I don't know. Well, that's something I definitely want to expand on later. I mean, that's a project I've got on the horizon, is Lily's natal technique. Because whenever we talk about Lily, we're talking about horary 99% of the time, right? Because he was everybody's favorite horary astrologer. But his natal technique is just outstanding, because he first calculates temperament, and then he gets into the significator of manners, the planetary significator of the manners of that person, how they're going to express their temperament. And if you know that, and then move that character through the houses, total game changer in natal astrology. Just incredible. And book 3 of Christian astrology, nobody ever talks about it. So I don't know. I've had some trepidation putting that out there because I don't want somebody to beat me to it. I haven't even begun writing it yet, but I definitely want to expand on it. Anyway, a digression, but that's kind of been my path, and then of course some magical society, a particular Golden Dawn order, that I don't mind talking about, and another a Masonic Rosicrucian tradition that I got involved in, and both of which I'm still really active in, but my interests have, and some alchemical studies, just spagyric stuff, your typical salt, sulfur, mercury, and recombining them after perfecting them, etc., tinctures and stuff. But apart from that, it's just been my regular lately my magical path has been more Greco-Egyptian, like PGM, Greek magical proprietary stuff, and all the way through the late Platonists, Iamblichus and Proclus, and theurgical, thaumaturgical, things like that. Telestiki, statue animation, and
that's really, really fun stuff there.
Yeah. So that's my life. That's what's going on.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It seems like you're getting into those the nitty gritty, like hidden parts that people don't. They're there, but we don't talk about them as much.
For
And I think
sure.
that's really important.
Yeah, I think that all of us, like you guys, what I've learned about you guys already is you've specialized, and I think all of us tend to, you come at things very broadly in a sort of secret teachings of all ages scope, you know what I mean? Very encyclopedic kind of scope of things, and then all of a sudden you begin to specialize, just like a lot of people do when you get into whatever academic pursuit or vocational anything artistic pursuit. You come up with a style, you come up with your lane.
Yeah. You got to see that big picture first and know what lane you're going to go into.
For sure.
And the thing is with the esoteric studies, I mean, broadly, it is so broad and so big and so varied, and there are so many wormholes.
So interesting. You just got to.
Yeah, and it's got everything. It's got history. It's got
Yeah.
cool personalities, like even just in the Golden Dawn tradition, if you look at some of these people in, Victorian England, they're just interesting people who get into trouble and get into, intrigue and espionage, and, it's just cool history. And Lily and Culpeper and these people that I'm sure you're both very familiar with. It's just interesting stuff. And even more notable figures like Tycho Brahe and his fake nose, or the big fight that Kepler got into with Robert Flood, for example. It's just cool stuff.
And people who don't know, like when you're saying Nicholas Culpeper and William Miller, it's like, and Tycho Brahe is like he got in a duel, had his nose cut off. Like Culpeper literally got shot in the chest during the Revolution, died. Right. Lily made prophecies that altered the course of English history.
Yeah, the fire.
Yeah, and it's like we when we go from our perspective here, when most people think about Culpeper, they're just thinking like, oh, astrological herbalism.
Right.
But there's when you get to know the people, it's really a whole new world.
Oh yeah, and their milieu, like as angel magicians and things like that.
Oh.
When you think about Sibley or Thomas Rudd, Dr. Rudd, how these people were actually, making magical circles and conjuring goetic entities. And, these people still had, that's what's fascinating. They still had the enchanted worldview, not our post-enlightenment, the poorly named movement, the Enlightenment. I mean, which really was the beginning of our atheistic materialism and our positivism that we've inherited today as modern, Westerners, at least, that we come up in, this just bracketed, really materialistic worldview that's our inheritance, so it's a difficult process to re-enchant that, and it takes some faith, a leap of faith of some kind, but how does one truly convince themselves, in say the objective reality of angels or demons, or are they just psychologized, or are they just like compartmentalized aspects of our psyche that we're projecting into the world, or that's dicey territory.
It's hard to know anything for sure when you come down to it, let alone angels and demons. It's hard to know anything.
Yeah.
But it is also important to know that the people who started the scientific enlightenment, the Newton was an alchemist.
Right.
Tycho Brahe was an astrologer. All those astronomers were astrologers.
Yeah. And they made more money that way, typically, like Kepler did. I know he had to do astrology. Agrippa even had to do astrology to sustain himself. He didn't like doing it, actually. Neither did Kepler, I think.
But it's a practical service that people value, So I mean that's one reason that I do astrology, is because it's a practical service. You get to actually help people with their problems, and it's useful.
Exactly.
And you're speaking of this lineage of astrologer magicians, and it was one and the same. And now in the modern age of the materialist reduction society that we've inherited, as you said, we have this bifurcation of like magic and astrology, but this book is a bridge to that, where you're like, no, we can like use two tools at once, more than two, but
yeah, they're kind of a piece. I mean, they're hermetic arts, astrology, alchemy, and theurgy. I mean, they inform each other. I mean, let's say an alchemical process or an operation you're performing, you at least pick the day and hour when you're going to pick let's say what's an herb, something like what is basil?
Basil.
Yeah, St. John's wort. So you're going to pick a Sunday, probably the first hour, after sunrise, and because you want this solar sympathy, the solar resonance, right, for St. John's wort. I think that's the sun, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So what is basil? Mars?
Mars and Scorpio.
Yeah. Isn't it funny how, like, once you get to know that, like, I was guessing Mars just because of the taste of basil, and it's like because there's a little bit of a spikiness to it, I think.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, oh, that must be Mars. I mean, it's so. I like that it gets intuitive and it's pretty logical. The correspondences that we use.
Yeah.
And it really is. I mean, I think Culpeper and Lilly, even like that whole tradition, they were using the herbs and using the astrology to classify the herbs for very practical purposes and in a very useful way.
Yeah.
Isaac's been doing a big deep dive into the correspondences of the herbs and the planets with his zodiac garden book that he's been writing, and made a beautiful zodiac garden here on our farm.
It's very fun.
I can't wait to learn more about that.
Well, it'll be out soon.
Yeah,
it'll be. We'll have it out soon. I'll send you a copy. So, but your book here, Astrological Goetia, I find this. I'm really excited about this because it's combining several things. I mean, one, I love astrological magic, traditional astrology, and the other thing is that in the tradition of Vedic astrology that I practice within, we have the divisional charts, and they're very, very important, especially in my tradition. You can get so much depth in these divisional charts, and in Parashara, Parashara Shastra, we have like 16 main divisional charts. The really most important one is the ninth divisional, which is at 108, and so that's why we have like 108 beads in a mala. From that D9 taps into that, and it's the perfect harmony between the sun and the moon, because there's 4 padas in each nakshatra. There's 27, so that makes it 108, and then it moves into the. Anyway,
is that like a metonic cycle, or?
Well, it's just like each pada is 3 degrees 20 minutes, right?
Oh, okay.
Of arc. So then there are 9 of those in one sign.
Okay.
Sign.
You'll have to forgive my ignorance of Jyotish or Vedic astrology. I don't know very much about it, to be honest. Well, I know some Yavana Jataka stuff that made it over, which is Hellenistic.
Yeah, and there are the divisional charts in the Hellenistic too, and there's like the 12 division chart, what we would call the D12.
Dodecamoria, yeah.
And the decans, of course, the decans, the D3. But this we would call this Quinary astrology the D6, or the Shastamsha, the 6th division.
I see.
And it's not one of the 16 divisions of Parashara, but it is a division that Jaime teaches, which is a more like even more esoteric branch of the tradition.
I see. And I wonder if they get it from that Salmeshkianaka, which is a Mesopotamian idea.
Yeah, and I think that they do. I mean, we also see like there's like the Indus Valley civilization was trading with Egypt and Babylon, Sumer, since the beginning of civilization. They were all always in. Right. And I think astrology actually developed between all of those civilizations.
Yeah, they all contribute. They seem to have all contributed. Well, when we say astrology, right? Are we to define that?
Right.
We could say, we could say technically and specifically, planets, signs, houses, and aspects. When we get those 4 components, that's when we can call it astrology, I think. And I think Pingree and people like that might agree that and Jim Tester, I think we agree that when those 4 components come together, we get proper astrology. There's proto-astrologies, there's Omenic astrologies, there's nakshatras, there's lunar mansions, there's all of these things that sort of precede proper astrology, I guess we might call it. But
I like to call it horoscopic astrology.
Whether sidereal or tropical, horoscopic astrology. When we have an ascendant.
And 12, and that's what like Parashara is, like Hora Shastra. It's the horoscopic astrology.
I see.
But the other thing that in a lot of these divisional charts that we do is we have spirits associated with the divisions. So like the D10, we have the 10 Devatas of the directions. So like the 8 directions and above and below are mapped out to the D10, and in the D9 there's these different Devatas. Even in the main 12 solar sun signs, we have the Adityas, so there's a spirit attached to each of these divisions. And that's the other thing I really like about this book is like you're tapping into that as well. It's like there are these spirits associated with the Quinaries.
Sure. Yeah. And coming from a couple different kind of streams, you get sort of a mosaic Kabbalistic thread. And on this other side, this more Solomonic kind of, sort of demonic thing, this spirit catalog that developed over this Solomon Magus tradition. So taking each of those, the mosaic kind of current coming from, when Moses parted the Red Sea, let's say, he was said to have said by people like Kircher and Reuchlin, in the early Renaissance or medieval period, when they would talk about the Shem HaMephorash, the angels of the Shem HaMephorash, 72 angels. So that comes from that very part in Exodus 14, I think it is, 19 through 21. Exodus 14, 19 through 21. There's 3 lines there, 19, 20, and 21, that when read boustrophodonically, which means as the ox plows the field. So this way, that way, this way. And each of those 3 lines have 72 letters in them, and that didn't escape the notice of these Kabbalists later on, these European Kabbalists, who then put that together and made these 72 stacks of 3 letters each, right? And then they add either Yah or El, depending on the gender, to each of these 72 3-letter names. So then all of a sudden you get 72 angels of the Shem HaMephorash, which is, of course, retrospectively looking at the parting of the Red Sea and this thaumaturgical wonder working that Moses performs, right? And they're able to, during the Exodus, of course. But so there's those 72 angels, and then later, not much later, but around that time, they're given attributes like this one's good at finding lost things. This one will teach you liberal arts. Same things like you find in the Goetic demons, and then speaking of Goetic demons, you go back to the beginning of the Solomon Magus tradition on the other side, right? So you got this Mosaic lineage and this Solomonic lineage. Solomon Magus, biblically, we just know this little fraction of his personality or his the scope of what he was involved in. But in other, like the Arabian Nights or the Quran or in Talmudic literature, rabbinical literature, in the Testament of Solomon, which is a piece of, Abrahamic apocrypha, like, which contains like all manner of demons in it who help him to build the temple. So we're starting to see the development of a spirit catalog that by the time you get to the early modern period with the Lesser Key of Solomon and the Lemegeton and things like that, you find that there's 72 demons associated with the Quinaries, and each of those demons are given attributes like, this one will help you avoid shipwrecks, this one will help you speak more eloquently, etc. and planetary attributes, elemental attributes, numerological associations with them. So that's what I saw, these two groups of 72 entities, both angelic, Mosaic, and demonic, Solomonic, and grafted these onto the zodiac, basically, onto those quinaries, the 72 5-degree arc segments. Now that up to there, that was already done. Rudd was doing that. That's an early modern thing that these angel magicians were using. In fact, they would have laymen's that would have the demon's seal on the outside, and then on the inside they had the sigil of the corresponding angel was was pointing at their heart. So there was a angelic insulation, sort of like a thwarting angel effect, where you're not likely to get the chaotic demonic effluence or influence. I never use the word energy astrologically or metaphysically, because energy is a thing. Energy is like calories and units of heat or something like that, or work. I always use metaphysical. I'm just saying, like, it's never the energy of Mars to me. It's always its effluence or its influence, or because it just sucks. Like sometimes when we use physical words, words applied to physics and things, metaphysically, it's just, I don't know, it just doesn't ring true to me. It seems more like I don't know why I bring that up. It's just a thing I'm hyper conscious of. But anyway, so yeah, those two groups of 72. Oh, and just to finish that thought, what I didn't see was anybody using those in chart delineation. So, and I thought that was a logical thing. Like, something like 5 to 10 years ago, I remember thinking, okay, what demon rules my ascendant? I think it would be a logical thing to like look up, right? Or what angel? So
now we can look that up in your book.
and I found nothing in the literature, nothing at all in the literature about anybody using this stuff for actual astrology, because it was taken from the astrological world so early on, and secreted into the magical and Kabbalistic paradigm, that it didn't make it back into nuts and bolts astrology. So it was like the Quinaries were sort of leached out of astrology, where they came from in Mesopotamia, and then maybe even in the early Hellenistic period. But then they were brought into this magical / Kabbalistic, Hermetic kind of world, and then never made it back into astrology. So I'm kind of just completing the circuit, I think.
Yeah, and it has to be somebody like you who is working with the angelic magic and the magical traditions, as well as the astrology, to be able to put them back together, because astrologers don't know about it.
Yeah, I know that was a long-winded way of saying that, but yeah, and yeah.
And so you're saying that Moses parted the seas with the help of angels, and King Solomon built the temple with the help of demons?
Yeah. I mean, that's the tradition. Now, of course, we don't read that in scripture. It's a medieval sort of retrospective, interpretive lens, a Kabbalistic lens that they put on that event, the parting of the Red Sea. It's clearly a thaumaturgical event. It's a magical event. He's wonder working. And they still use that for saints in like the Orthodox tradition. Gregory the Wonder Worker. It's Gregory the Thaumaturge. He's a wonder worker. He's a magician. But well, a lot of people would argue that where's magic end and religion begin? But it's blurry.
Yeah. What is magic to you?
I tend to go to there's a nice concise definition in the Picatrix, where bad paraphrase, but it's something like it could be reduced to like occult causality, hidden causality, things that you can't explain. In fact, this goes to my whole idea about energies. The energy of Mars. I think it's the the effluence or the influence of Mars. That's magical. Energies like rays, like Al-Kindi would talk about, the emission of rays, that's physical. That's not extra normal. That's not supernatural. That's just physics. That's just how light works. That's how energy works. The communication of energy. I mean, there's nothing mystical or metaphysical about that. There is something metaphysical about effluences and influences and these sort of cosmic sympathies and these resonances. That's magic, because you can't point to the causal agent. It's magic. It's
you can't see it like the way
it
that
can't be measured
the
sensibly.
Yeah, and same with like the angels and demons. They're not something that you can see in like you and I. So what are the angels and the demons too? Like, we sometimes think of demons as like these horny beings from hell. Like, what are we working with when we're talking about demons here?
So for demons, I would say sort of morally, ethically neutral. I think that jibes with from the Platonic sense of things, kind of at least into the Renaissance a little bit, and then you of course get the demonization of the demon. You get the Linda Blair, Pazuzu, Ouija board going to possess you demon that we know today, and of course that goes back a ways as well. But I think I tried to make a case for a more objective view of what we consider a demon or a spirit, And in Agrippa, he just calls them spirits. He means it's the same. A demon is a genius. It's like the guardian demon of a location, let's say, is the genius loci.
Yeah.
To have a personal demon or daimon is to have a higher genius. A holy guardian angel, even. Of course, we're using the term angel there as well as a messenger, but demons are like angels, they're intermediary. I think the big difference is where they are cosmically.
Yeah.
So demons are below the Ogdoad. They're below the fixed stars in the zodiac. They're at that sphere, right? But they're not beyond that sphere. They're not in the Ennead or the Noetic realm, beyond the fixed stars in the zodiac, beyond the Ogdoad. Demons are at the Ogdoad and down to at least fire and air, if not water and earth, but at least fiery and aerial and fiery demons, right? But then you get planetary demons, you get decanal demons, you get stellar demons, you get zodiacal demons, constellational demons, as like in the Testament of Solomon, they talk about the 7 demon sisters who are the Pleiades, and so, but angels are different. Angels are beyond the Ogdoad. They're noetic. They're immaterial. They're more like mathematical equations, according to people like Iamblichus, all the way through John Dee would consider them more like a mathematical entity, an abstraction. Despite the fact that we personify them in art, Gabriel with the sword, or Michael, and you see these archangels and things. But even in like Pseudo Dionysius the Areopagite talks about the angelic choirs, right? These the celestial hierarchy of angels that begin after the firmament, beyond the firmament, beyond the Ogdoad. So, yeah, I think the cosmic arrangement, their cosmic location is what differentiates the angels as messengers from the lower, lesser demons as intermediaries.
Makes sense, yeah.
But there is this association with demons as a malevolent, negative entity. Culture. And a lot of people don't want to work with demons at all. I mean, like I don't personally work with demons at all.
Right.
But what I'm calling demons, I work with nature spirits.
Sure. Elementals.
Yeah. But there is at least at this, because there is a cultural element to to the transmission of magic and as well. And like, so I think that there is something to because there is a negative perception of them there. I mean, I don't know. It's difficult. What do you think about that end of things?
I think you nailed it saying it's cultural, right? And culture evolves. So where we are right now is demons are evil, impious, chaotic entities, right? So that's the currency of the word right now. You say demon, people get a particular notion, and that's, you can't say that's incorrect because it's the case. But I would say that if you use the term spirit like you did, which is synonymous with demon, it's the same thing. Elemental spirit, a gnome, a sylph, an undine, or a salamander is demonic in a sense. It's a spirit. So, doesn't a salamander just look like, if you saw a salamander in the Goetia and it said salamander and gave you you would think nothing of it. You would turn the page to the next demon. But I think and angels, it's not like they're totally nice all the time. They could be, especially when you think of something like an ophoneme, wheels within wheels, covered in eyes, six, or seraphim, I think, have 6 wings and many-eyed, and they can be terrifying, awful creatures, and described as such too. Encountering an angel would be a terrifying event in a lot of descriptions.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of like psychedelic art of angels, and there's just a ton of eyes and wings, and they're a little like frightening.
Yeah. So you can imagine what that it would be like. Like people describe hallucinogenic entities, DMT, elves, and all kinds of stuff. I think that of course, that's been happening for thousands of years, psychedelic experiences and things like that, which could account for some of these, can account for some of these events that are described, these Enochian visions, these like Ezekiel's vision, or certainly Enoch, Ezekiel, Jacob with his ladder and the angels ascending and descending. There's the description of these entities, I think, is really interesting wherever they come from, right? But
and just practically in terms of the 72 connected with the 72 5-degree sections of the zodiac, which is what this book's about. Each of these angels and demons have particular qualities, so it does make it very, very useful for natal chart use.
Yeah.
And exactly. Yeah. So if you say like you're an astrologer, so not everything is, nobody's a zodiac sign. Nobody is per se a Leo. A Leo is more like an adjective than a noun. Somebody's sun might be in Leo. Their Venus might be in Leo. So their Venus is colored by this leonine zodiacal light, let's say, to put it in a poetic way. But so to have your planets in certain houses and signs, it's the same as having your planet in a certain quinary or quinary. You're still getting the influence of those two entities, because there's an angel and a demon assigned to each quinary. So you're getting an angelic and demonic influence, or coloration on that planet that's within those 5 degrees of arc. So it just seemed so logical to me that just as you could look at someone's planets in signs and houses and how they're aspected with each other, and you could look at their planets in each of the decans that they happen to fall in and give them another planetary overlay. Like if your Venus is in a decan ruled by Mars, you're going to get this maybe a more lustful coloration to sex than, you know what I mean? Because Mars and Venus, that whole mythological relationship, there's going to be different coloration on the planet placed within that whatever arc segment, whether it's a term or a face or a decan or bound or a quinary.
Yeah. And that's how we use it in Vedic astrology as well. Like each planet is in all of these different divisions. They're not just in a sign, they're in this half of the sign and this quarter or this third of the sign and so on.
Detailed.
Right. Very detailed. And then if there's a deity ruling that planet on all those different levels, that deity does influence them. And for instance, like, there are ways to work with Devatas working on that planet in order to boost that planet, or for remediation and so on, but also for rectification. We can use these in Vedic tradition. We use the divisional charts as a main form of rectification, and that's one of the things that I really like about this too, because we sat down the other day and we were like looking at our ascendant degrees in this book, and I've rectified both of our ascendants to about 15 minutes previous to our birth certificate time, which was actually pretty common. And so you're like, oh, well, let's look at the two different 5-degree, the two different quinary situations and see which one fits better. And one of them was like, oh, that kind of fits. And then the one that we rectified it to was like, wow, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Like it works. It's not just a logical thing. It actually works in practice.
It was embarrassing for both of us. We were like, read the first one and then we were like, oh, that I guess could work. And then we were like, wow, this is reading us to the T.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah. I've had that happen with Profections too. I forget what they call the correlative in Jyotish or Vedic, but Profections, when each year of at least annual Profections, each year of the native's life is a house, and you move from, the first year of life is the first house, and from 365 days to 2 years is the second house, etc. But I wonder if the quinaries are just about 5 days for a quinarian week. I wonder if, and I didn't talk about this in the book, you've just got my wheels turning on this. I wonder if you could profect by quinaries, using those for 5-day periods. Go back through the life and maybe do a weekly quinarian profection, or spin it out into an annual cycle. I don't know.
Just something to test it out. To try it out. Well, we do use timing techniques in divisional charts, and they, like for us, actually, the quinary, we would call it the D6 because it's the 6. There are 6 5-degree sections in a 30-degree, sign.
Sure.
But we use that specifically for 6th house kind of things. So sickness, illness, like death calculations, and also like court cases and stuff where there's the enemy, like because for us 6th house is like an enemy. And
I could see that because 180 degrees would be the other, and it's basically their 12th house.
Yeah. But yeah, we do use it. We that's how we use it. We use the Vimshodri Dashas system in the D6 in order to like time illnesses and so on. So
sure,
probably. I mean, I'm sure there's ways to maybe the Profections or maybe other techniques as well. But the Profections, that seems like a valuable direction or a good direction to go into.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had great luck with Profections just in my consultations. They always blow my mind. And the one thing that I love about that technique is that you don't need to cast any other charts. Everything's in the nativity, and you can dial it because it's sexagesimal and it works so nicely with 360 degrees. Is that you can dial it literally down to the planetary ruler of each second of the natives. Not that you'd ever need to get that granular. But isn't it crazy that you can do, because you could go from annual to monthly to daily to hourly to minutely, and really keep dialing it down so fractally that it's I just love Profections. Anyway, you were saying?
Oh well, I think that is also we call it, use a Sarvatobhadra chakra. That's what we call the perfections. But we do the sun going through the signs, but also from the moon.
Oh yeah, for the body.
Yeah, we do the ascendant, the sun, and the moon all in the Sarvatobhadra. Sometimes it can be too complicated.
Yeah.
but I really, we have these 360 degree images of the degrees, like the Angelus book, but and now we have this we've had it, but we with this book it makes it more available.
Yeah.
Quinaries, so you can really get very, very precise.
Sure.
With timing techniques using the Western techniques. And so my other question for you is, having studied with Chris Brennan and Chris Warnock, and studied, how do you approach a reading? Are you using mainly the whole sign houses, or are you using angular houses? Another thing for the Vedic astrology is that we use the whole sign houses, and the divisional charts really it's like they work really well in a whole sign house,
Sure, because they're D whatever, right?
Right.
I could see why that 30-degree reference, the D in your terminology, and then the division, the D10, that would I see what you mean.
But so how do you read a chart from your perspective?
Sure. So I do Western tropical astrology. I have used whole signs, and sometimes I still do. About 2 years ago, I switched to porphyry houses, and I did that because I wanted a little more of an overlay. I wanted a little more detail, specifically in horary, because when I was learning horary, and I studied with Warnock for horary, I was using Regiomontanus, which is a quadrant house system, and I liked the extra overlay that it provided. That its signs were broken up and sometimes intercepted and things like that, but it provided an extra level of detail, just another overlay. So I decided to kind of split the difference and go to porphyry houses, which is the earliest quadrant house system, as far as I'm aware. And I think Deborah Holding might agree with that. So if we go from arguably whole sign houses being the earliest, people have made arguments against that, but I don't want to open that can of worms. But I definitely I started with Placidus many years ago, like pretty much everybody in the West, but then moved to whole sign when I got serious about traditional astrology, and then now I'm at porphyry houses. So how I'll do a reading, so Western tropical astrology, horoscopic astrology using porphyry houses, I will cast a figure, and if I'm doing a natal consultation, the first thing I'll do is calculate their temperament. And this is Lily's third book. This is Lily's natal technique. I'll calculate their temperament, so I'll find out if they're sanguine, melancholic, some hyphenated thing, phlegmatic, sanguine, or whatever. I'll calculate their temperament, and then I will calculate their significator of manners, which is a planetary calculation. You end up with a planet that's not a luminary, though, so it's never going to be the sun or moon. It's usually a planet in the first house. It's sometimes a planet that has an aspect relationship to Mercury and the moon specifically, or it's the planet that's the almutin of the degree of the Mercury and the moon. So the planet that has the most essential dignity in the degree of Mercury and the degree of the moon. So once you get that planet, that's your significator of manners. So once I get that says a lot about the native, as opposed to just jumping straight into houses and using their big three or something like that. I already have a temperament, and I have the way that they're expressing that temperament, the planetary way that they're expressing their temperament, like a person who's sanguine, very jovial, very loud, boisterous. But if their significator is, let's say, the moon, it wouldn't be the moon because you wouldn't use, let's say it's Saturn. Saturn is their significator of manners. So no, he's not expressing that sanguinity boisterously. his sort of generosity is coming out in a very muted way and very circuitous, maybe, because it's Saturnine. It might be some hidden generosity. Like he will outwardly scold somebody, but then he's leaving behind, some sort of massive tip. Yeah, exactly. So you see that maybe that's not a great example, but you see what I mean, how the temperament is expressed by the significator of manners, like mind your manners. What are your manners as you go through the world? So once I have that, then I can take that identity, that character through the houses and say something meaningful, So that's that's my primary method. I've got another one that I use when I feel like mixing things up, just when I feel inspired to do it. My other one is I calculate basically their Almutin Figuris, their daimon, which is always going to be planetary, and I just do that through the regular Ibn Ezra Mashallah method, where it's the Almutin in the 5 high legical places. That's the sun, the moon, the ascendant, the prenatal syzygy, and the lot of fortune, or part of fortune. And the planet with the most dignity in those 5 places, and then houses you do, and day and hour as well. And you assign a numerical value, of course, to your essential dignities: 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5 for house, 4 for exaltation, 3 for triplicity, 2 for decan, and 1 for or face, and 1 for I'm doing that backwards, term and then face. So bound and then decan, 2 and 1. Anyway, a little too much detail there. But once I get that Almutin Figuris, then I can take that character through the houses. Tell me about my love life. I go to the 7th house using that personal daimon.
Yeah.
What do you do? I'm curious now, though. Quid pro quo. What do you do in Vedic? Like, how do you break into a consultation? Natally.
Well, generally, I mean, we got to make sure we have the right time. And so I try to always do a little rectification first, because I'm using whole sign houses. And sometimes like the degree of the ascendant is like right in the middle, like 15 degrees or something, but sometimes it's at 29 or at 0, and you got to really, make sure you've got the right chart first. And I'll look at divisional charts, especially the D9. The D9 shows skills, and it shows the love life partners, and it shows also the soul, the Atmakaraka we read, which is the soul significator. We read and Devatas, that particularly helpful for that soul in the D9. So it's like the most important chart.
Sure.
So I'll look at that, and I'll look at the ascendant, and I'll look at the Ascendant Lord in the main chart, and make sure we have the right chart. And then I'll go through, analyze the ascendant Lord. So whatever planets are in the ascendant, whatever planets are with the ascendant Lord, what house the ascendant Lord is going to, and then like also that, because there's all these, like the yogas are very important. So what planets are with each planets, and like I'm going to go through, and to a basic reading, I'm going through each of the houses and looking at the yogas. When I'm looking at the yogas, I'm looking at the natural significations of those planets. So like Jupiter and Mercury together are like the holy book, the Bhagavad Gita yoga,
Sure.
But it's like, it could be the Bible or the Quran. It's like that sacred book.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
But they also are house lords, so whatever houses those 2 planets lord, that's going to also be very important and create a lot of meaning. And then there are all these like more technical things too, like the Bhataka, which is the house, and it depends on if it's a dual sign or a movable sign, like whatever sign it is, the Bhataka will change, and that shows the unseen obstacles. So you can see like black magic, curses, but also just like if the person is creating their own problems and not seeing it, you know what I mean? So it depends on, there's all these different combinations that show different things. Looking at that, looking at the Aruda Lugna is also very important. I'm looking at that to see the reflection in the world. So it's like your image in the world. And we get that by going from the ascendant to the ascendant lord. We count that many houses, and then we count that many houses from the ascendant lord. So it's like the reflection.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And so then that point shows us that the image in the world, and we can look at reputation. We can look at like how people are seen. We can even look at like money from that, like looking at the 11th house and so on. So there's all these different points. I'm looking at all these different lugnas, all these different ascendants. The ascendant is one ascendant, and then the ascendant lord is another ascendant. You know what I mean? It's another lugna. Yeah. And then the root of lugna is another lugna. So I'm analyzing it from each of these points to show.
You turn the chart from that perspective, and you call that a first house, basically, and you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there are specific ways to read each of those too. And like the moon is a lugna, the sun you can like read from any of these points.
Sure.
So that's kind of what I do, and then I'm also analyzing to see like where the afflictions are happening, and what are causing the problems in this person's life.
Right.
For instance, if they're going through a lot of, if they have a lot of, they're going through a lot of emotional disturbance, and they've had a history of like, a hard time emotionally. We're looking at the moon, and we're going to see, that moon is probably afflicted by Mars and Rahu, or like in the 8th house or something like that. We're looking at the 4th house as well. So we're like looking at there's the 4th house, the 4th lord, and the moon. And you're going to see like where it's afflicted, and then try to find a remedy for that. And oftentimes that's usually working with a particular deity through a mantra.
Sure. Now is remediation more sympathetic or antipathetic or allopathic or homeopathic?
Yeah, I mean, sympathetic and antithetical is great. I mean, I like that phrasing. And it depends. So we also we divide up the planets between malefic and benefic. Yeah. But it's really there's soft and there's hard. Okay. And then so like Sun is a hard planet. It's a malefic planet because it's harsh. But it's a sattvic planet. So the moon, Jupiter, and the sun are sattvic, whereas the tamasic planets are the Saturn, Mars, Rahu, Ketu.
Does sattvic have anything to do with Sothis, Sirius, like the Egyptian?
No, sattva is like balance. So tamas is like darkness.
Oh, heaviness. You said sattvic.
Yeah, sattvic. Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said Sothic, as in the Sothis, Sirius, the old Egyptian for the star Sirius.
Yeah, no. It's just
I misheard.
Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas are like the 3 gunas, so those are very important.
Okay.
So it depends on if like we're having a problem with we want to boost the sattva. So some traditions will, like, if you have a Saturn period, like Saturn going over your moon, where your Saturn Mahadasha starts, you want to be appeasing Saturn. For us in our tradition, we do the antipathetical route. So if Saturn's causing a problem, we do Sun. So the sattva of Sun will burn the tamas of Saturn. The sattva of Moon mellows out the tamas of Mars, and then Jupiter keeps Rahu in check. Okay. But then for other things, we want to be boosting Jupiter or boosting Venus, or you know what I mean. So it really kind of depends on a full analysis of the chart, what each of the planets are doing, whether we're boosting them or we're pacifying them, or So
yeah, same in the West, I would say. There's a time for sympathy and a time for antipathy. I like that. Definitely this benefic and malefic. There's a lot of similarities there.
Yeah.
One thing I was thinking about was talisman making.
Yeah.
Is there? We obviously about our tradition in Western astrology, Western astrological magic. Is there something similar in Vedic?
Well, so I studied with Chris Warnock as well, and I practice astrological magic, and I make a lot of talismans.
Oh, okay.
As well. And so like Austin Coppock has studied in this tradition too, and my teacher Freedom will use Austin's talismans, like they're tropical talismans, but he uses them and they work in this sidereal chart.
Oh, too. Okay. Yeah.
So that is one thing, but generally there are gemstone just like pure gemstones. You wear a big ruby, it's going to amplify the sun.
Do you do you inscribe on them?
So there's a whole tradition of kavachas and like all these other, there's a lot of different kinds of talismans and so on. But as far as I know, the Picatrix style talismans are not that way of making talismans is not. But apparently also like I was speaking with a friend recently, and he was saying how even in Persia, like Picatrix is actually kind of like not the be all end all of astrological magic.
De Imaginibus, I think, by Tabata Ben Kura was pretty. I think, and this Haranian Sabian talismanic tradition, I think.
There's all sorts of other ones that haven't been translated.
Sure,
like, Picatrix is the one that got translated, and then so our entire Western astrological magic tradition comes from just the one that got translated. And
exactly. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But so do you use talismans remedially?
Not so much. I have made them for that, but I typically use them in like the I guess sort of you could say the devotional sense, and just as anchoring some of that effluence. And again, no words like energy and stuff like that, but just as a touchstone, sort of, like, and in maybe it's simplistic, but if I'm doing a speaking thing, going somewhere, I'll take my Mercury talisman that I frequently sort of reconsecrate. So I have 7 planetary tinctures going at any certain time, and I mix up whatever herbs I have available, and look for elections when to do that. So I keep 7 planetary tinctures going at any time. I keep 7 planetary talismans. I've made other like house-based talismans and things before, and I've fiddled around with Quinarian talismans as well, because I
ask you about that.
Because I wrote a chapter on that in the book. So in the book I went through, after establishing the astrological foundations of the Quinaries, like the angelic and demonic, goetic and sort of Shem HaMephorash angels. After establishing their correspondences and everything, I think in chapter 4 is the big reference section where I go through all 72 angels, all 72 demons, having angel demon, angels on a right facing page, demons on a left facing page.
Yeah,
just a quick, for people watching, there's like the demon has a circle around it. And then angel.
Yeah, for the angels, I gave their sigil. For the demons, I gave their seal. So you can copy those and put them on a talisman for that quinary, etc. So, and then after establishing all the reference stuff, then I took that quinarian idea and applied it to first natal astrology. Then I think I did horoscopic. Wait, how did it go? I did natal astrology, the Quinaries in natal astrology, the Quinaries in electional astrology, and the Quinaries in horary, and then talisman making, And then my favorite part of that book, though, is I think it's chapter 9, the conclusions, because there's some philosophical things going on there. There's some philosophical inferences or implications. Like, for example, we astrologize from the Ogdoad down. The Earth is the locus of human consciousness. It's the locus of astrology. We astrologize from the Earth. So it's georeferential, not necessarily geocentric, right? You don't have to believe some antiquated worldview cosmological worldview to do astrology. The Earth is where we astrologize from. So, that's just the way that I prefer. Like, I imagine the Tychonic cosmology more than anything else, because we see the planets rise, culminate, and set, every day, right? And we see primary and secondary motion over the course of a year, a day and a year. So it's not unusual and plus, even when we see the sun, with Mercury and Venus are always sort of tethered to the sun. You'll never see the sun rise and Mercury in the west, at the descendant.
Right.
They're tethered. I mean, every astrologer knows that, but people always level that argument. Astrology is geocentric, and it's like it's not. And Tycho made that nice observation that he put Mercury and Venus going around the sun because their orbits are inferior to ours. So he really corrected that Ptolemaic view. But so I really like that. But I brought that up because what were we talking about? Now I forget why I brought that up.
We were talking about talismans at first. Yeah.
Well, talismans.
Using them in talismans.
Oh no, I remember the 9th chapter conclusions.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Georeferential.
Yeah, so philosophical insight. Here's what kind of happened, and I was surprised by this, and this happened while I was writing the book. I got excited because we astrologize from the Ogdoad down. We look at the planets and how they are arrayed against the canopy of the fixed stars in the zodiac. But since we're using angelic notions, we're penetrating the Ogdoad. So we're getting into the noetic realm. We're astrologizing noetically for the first time that I've seen anywhere. You know what I mean? We've punctured the Ogdoad, and now we're astrologizing in a place where, if we look at it platonically, like formally or idealistically, it's there's no time there. The forms are not in. They're in sort of an ionic type of AION, an ionic sort of time. Not our chronic linear time, our sequential time. They're in like a different kind of, like the first time, like the Zeptepi of the Egyptians or something. They're in this you can't even say static, just noetic plane, right? So so now we get to apply the way that we astrologize sub-ogdoadically, if I can make a word like that, but into the noetic sphere, the angelic sphere of the angels, which is acausal, because there's no time, there's no space, there's no causality, there's no motion. So it's really strange, and I don't know where to go with that. I mean, I don't know. I think the last sentence of the book is something like, this is where we're at, and it's, where does it go from here? I really kind of left it wide open. I don't have the book in front of me.
With the angels so yet here we are, having stormed the zodiacal gates and torn back the celestial curtains of the firmament, we stand before the cosmic maw of eternity, the first time upon which all subsequent eternal recurrences have been patterned, with angels as our guides.
Yeah, I think that really sums up the entire philosophical meat of the book.
Yeah, and I guess the angels will probably know the way where to go, where to take that.
Hence where the magic comes in. Where now angelic magic is the only way we're going to glean that information. I mean, you can't call them on the telephone or email them. I mean, it's like our only recourse now is angelic magic, I think.
Yeah. I think that's awesome. I think it's a really important step for Western traditional because I also think that there's a lot that we've lost, and there's a lot and in also studying with the Vedic, in these Vedic traditions, I'm studying in this tradition that before 20 years ago, that you wouldn't be able to learn unless you were part of a Brahmin family in a particular part of India. And they passed it down family to family.
Sure.
And I think there was a lot that was similar in the West too. Is you're initiated into this lineage, and they don't necessarily share everything outside of the lineage. So what we have written down is in a way just like the notebooks, or So, but this is definitely a way forward into a bringing back and a bringing forward of the possibilities of traditional astrology.
Yeah. Have you ever had P.D. Newman on your show before?
No, but we should do that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You should talk to him. You just reminded me of something he told me many years ago. We're dear friends, and we text like every day and probably call pretty frequently. But he said to me once regarding that transmission of arcane knowledge. He was telling me, somebody asked him something, and he was telling me this on the phone. He said, I said to that person, do you expect me to hand up the or serve up the mysteries on a silver platter like so many heads of John the Baptist? And I thought that was a great way, just serve up the mysteries for you, like John's head,
Mm-hmm.
on a platter.
P.D. Newman, I just saw him a post recently where he posted about The Moment of Astrology by Jeffrey Cornelius, and that's a book that I just finished. And I've been interested in other astrologers' opinions on the question, is astrology divination, or is it more or less? What do you have an opinion on the matter?
I think, yeah, kind of. I haven't read that book. I'd like to read it. Danny sent me a screenshot when he bought it, but or P.D. Newman did. Danny's is, he goes by Danny, but the he sent me a screenshot of that. And divination. I think yes, but also it goes beyond that in that it can be a map of the soul in a late Platonic sense. And I say that because if you look at the myth of from Plato's Republic, book 10, right there at the very end, you get this near-death experience by this soldier and he comes back with this vision of planetary spheres and the spindle of necessity and things like that, and the assignment or the choice of a guardian daimon. And the soul descends, this gets elaborated on through the Platonic and Hermetic and Mithraic traditions as well, through all of the what scholars sometimes call the underworld of Platonism. What happens when this transmission snowballs is that you see the soul, guided by the personal daimon, descends first down through the Ogdoad, the firmament, and then through each of the 7 planetary spheres, it takes on accretions, what Porphyry called astral garments. So the soul takes on these vices and virtues as on its way down, and then finally, gets distributed through the sphere of the moon into the elemental, sublunary sphere, the earth, and the soul has now been clothed in these accretions, and a la the Pymander or the Poimandres, the Hermetic first book of the Corpus Hermeticum, the soul must shed these on its path back through the spheres from the moon to Saturn, and it says it very clearly what they're sacrificing at each of those spheres. It says it in 125 through 26, I think, in the Pymander. It says, and it corresponds to the Ptolemaic order of the Chaldean order of the planets from the moon to Saturn. They give up something having to do with that sphere. And then finally, the soul, naked and divested of these astral garments, is now free to enter the noetic sphere or whatever happens through the angelic spheres. But to me, that I still believe that is the soul, like the primary central objective of horoscopic astrology is this finding the daimon, calculating its name. Agrippa gives us 2 really great methods of doing that, and using that to theurgically sort of ascend. Well, theurgy goes down, but I guess in a telestic sort of way, almost an initiatic way, go back through those spheres. Like Macrobius in his commentary on the Dream of Scipio, he talks about this. The philosophical death. The body doesn't have to die, but just like you see in Orthodox Christianity today, it's still, they think of the passions. You become dead to the world. When you're dead to the world, that means you have no more attachment to the passions. The sensible world is dead, and that's when your soul is the most alive. So I think astrology to me is first and foremost that project, and then secondarily a divinational technique.
Yeah. So primarily it's the spiritual magical it's more than a tool, but it's a map.
A map. I guess a schematic of character. The development of character, or the erasure of passions.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. I think that's very, very crucial.
Yeah. What do you have left after those accretions are surrendered?
The divine spark.
Right.
Yeah. And there's a similar move in Vedic astrology too, with using the Atmakaraka. And you can, and I think there's been this back and forth from the beginning, and there's so many similarities that I'm finding between Neoplatonism or Platonism and like what we call Vedic end of Hinduism. Yeah. But anyway, this has been a fantastic conversation. I'm really happy that you were able to be on the show.
Likewise.
We've already gone an hour and 20 minutes. But this is a great book. I'm really happy that you put this out and made it available for people. This is a really fantastic tool for traditional astrologers. And yeah, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. It's been a real pleasure talking to you.
You too, Jaime. Thank you.
Thanks.